What's up, everyone? As you can see, we are at Casa de Tim. Is that how you'd say it, Tim?
Yes, sir. It's exactly what we say. 100% of the time.
I was calling it Casa de Pierce. I thought that was...
That works
That's
too.
too formal.
Oh, sorry.
That's too formal. So I'm on YouTube because of Tim and because of Rhett. This is the irony. Did I point in the right direction? Because I'm looking at the monitor
No,
here.
you're good.
I'm on YouTube because of Tim, because when he started posting, people like Rhett was interning at my studio, and he's like, hey, have you seen Tim Pierce's videos? It's like, yeah, it's amazing. God, I wish I had a setup like him.
Well, it was hard in the beginning because it was kind of uncool for a studio player to do something like that.
Humbling, as you would say.
Yeah, humbling. But I met Marty Schwartz, and I thought, now, how do I want to stay off the street? What's going to keep me off the street? And I thought that might keep me off the street. That thing that he's doing.
Because doing session work was disappearing.
Well, it was, let's do twice as much work for half the money. Okay.
Right.
And
yeah.
And I had been very busy during a time when we were highly valued and highly celebrated. Mm-hmm. And so contemplating that and going, well, that's a trend that actually is going to increase. And is it going to be twice as much work for a quarter of the money? Maybe so. So I thought, well, if this will keep me off the street, I'll give it a try. And I remember Marty saying, you're going to feel a little bit sleazy when you tell them to click the link below to sign up for the email list. And I said, okay, that's great. I remember my first video, it was like, wow, this does feel really uncomfortable. But I just kept doing it. And the videos you're talking about, those were more... I didn't feel bad about those at all. I was showing studio guitar parts because there was a venture by the founders of Guitar Player Magazine had an online venture, and I got to be involved in it. And those first 3 videos were basically for that thing. And that thing never went anywhere, but it was the founders of Guitar Player Magazine that actually were behind those first 3 videos. And that was me doing what I did in the studio. I was proud of those, and that's what you saw. Now, during that stage of time, Justin Sandergaard and Marty Schwartz owned YouTube.
They were it.
They owned it.
Right.
And you could put out a video. I remember my first videos, I would just go LaGrange and lesson. And it would be like, views. And it was probably way before you guys started, right?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It was easy. It was easy. It was like when I moved to LA in 1980, LA was easy. It was actually nurturing. It was like a nice mom, LA, for musicians. It was incredible.
I can't fathom that.
It was inexpensive, and there were no cell phones and no computers, so every inch of music had to be done by people getting together. You had to congregate with other musicians to make any music. And so there was just all this stuff happening all the time. And the reason people like Jackson Browne wrote great songs is he could make all of his living in his apartment that was really inexpensive, doing gigs on the weekend. And then he would just compose all the time. So you could be a working musician just doing gigs here and there and spend most of your time. I mean, the house I rented with 2 other musicians was $700 a month. My nut when I moved to LA was $233 a month.
That's insane.
Add utilities, add gasoline, but...
Okay, I want to get back to the YouTube thing here, Tim, because in the beginning of YouTube, when you were making these videos and Marty and Justin were on, there really wasn't... You didn't really know anything about how YouTube worked or anything. You just kind of put things up there, and the people that had the most subscribers got the most views, and then they got even more subscribers, and then they get even more views, right? When everything was tied. This is really before the algorithm works the way it does now. So when Rhett and I started
2016. 2018. Yeah.
So when I started doing this, I was like, to your point, my first video was, I feel like a used car salesman. I feel like a car salesman. I literally said that. That's the very first thing I said. And it was to my assistant, GL, or Ken, that you guys have seen in my videos. He was in the control room recording me. And I was sitting at the piano. I had a mic down low because I didn't know how to mic. I knew how to mic things, but I didn't know how to mic things for camera. So it really felt like that. And in the same way that when people asked me at my kid's school back then in the first year, what do you do for a living? Because I'd stopped producing within 6 months or so. I was like, I'm a YouTuber. Tim, did you call yourself a YouTuber when you were doing that? I mean, you were doing sessions at the same time.
I've never called myself a YouTuber.
I've never heard you call yourself a YouTuber.
Yeah, it's just maybe something, personal preference, but I get called it a lot when people describe me. Like, I'm doing appearances at NAMM and, session musician, YouTuber. It's awesome, though, because it means you survived. Exactly. Yeah. There's a survival thing about it, and I'm very proud of it because I believe that as a musician, you don't really exist unless you exist sonically and visually in social media.
Nowadays, yes.
Yeah, and if you want a gig, whoever's flying high in that private jet is looking on Instagram and seeing your business card, which is right there. That's how you get. And it's wonderful to be able to reach people that way. Mm-hmm. So I'm all in.
All the biggest artists that I know look at YouTube. They look at Instagram. I mean, they watch YouTube for the entertainment and to learn things or to hire people to play in their bands.
Yeah, that's your 100%. Business card. That's your presence. That's your body of work. So whatever it is, just make it nice. It doesn't have to be a lot, but you should be doing it definitely.
Yeah. What did you guys do? And I can't even remember now. Before YouTube had short form content, because Rhett told me famously, I'll have to remind him of this, that, like Instagram, why are you posting on there? That's not going anywhere. This is 5 years ago. And he said, Instagram is over. I'm like, what do you mean it's over? It's just getting started here. And then they start YouTube Shorts and then TikTok after that. And then YouTube was kind of trying to do the thing.
TikTok was really what
2018 on TikTok?
TikTok is what sort of birthed the whole short form vertical video thing, and Instagram and YouTube have been trying to
Instagram has been doing short form.
Yeah, but TikTok is what really made it pop off and made it the standard now, especially for younger people. I think a lot of younger players and people in general consume as much or more short form vertical scrolling stuff as they do long form. But on that side, I think there's a reaction that's happening where people, I notice it myself, are going back to not just long form, but watching really long form, 30, 40 plus minute videos, podcasts, etc. But yeah, I was wrong about the Instagram thing. I'll admit it.
I can decode this for you because what you were probably saying, and I retired my Instagram account. I don't even do it. What you're probably saying, when you exist on a platform and the algorithm changes, it can be over.
Yeah.
Because you have momentum, you have views, what you're doing is working. And then all of a sudden, one day, something changes and you're throttled.
That
makes sense.
The reason I said that, when I said it, is because that's when the big shift in Instagram's algorithm took place to where it was no longer... your feed wasn't based off of when someone posted. It was based off of a curated algorithm off of what Instagram thinks you wanted to see. And I noticed that the people that I followed no longer started showing up on my feed. It was now just a bunch of stuff.
It becomes decoupled.
Right.
Which happened on YouTube too.
Yeah.
Right.
They all figured that out, that if you decouple a person's, that's where the recommendation part comes in, and they get more views in the platform, and people stay on the platform longer.
And there was a big backlash to that. People were mad about it, and I think rightfully so. It's like, well, I want to, because I joined Instagram in 2012 when it started, and it was a social media, truly in the truest sense of the word, as a way to connect with your friends and people you want to keep up with. And when that algorithm shift happened, it became harder to keep up with people. And it made a lot of people upset. So that's why I thought, this is over.
Well, there are people I know who have small businesses, way huge, my friend George Trips. And when the algorithm changed, he was very adept at posting. The algorithm changed, and he had a limit all of a sudden.
Yeah.
And nothing exploded. And so that can happen, and it can be over just because the algorithm changed. YouTube has done that to me twice. I won't go into the details, and I've rebuilt. But it's scary when it happens.
Okay, so
just keep going.
I have a totally different perspective than both of them about the algorithm changing. I don't think that the algorithms change that much. What I do on YouTube and Instagram and TikTok, whatever, I pretty much do the same thing. Now I focus on different. Every year I try to do a new series or whatever. The last couple of years has been interviews. I did What Makes a Song Great videos and And then in the short form content, I was doing this, quick lessons thing that I did, but I haven't done those in about 3 years or so. And so, but what I do, I pretty much just do the same thing. People are like, "Oh, you're supposed to post on stories on Instagram." It's like, I never post stories. I only do one thing. I just do reels, and that's it. And
well, yeah, I find any person that's whole sort of approach to content is telling people how to make content. I don't think you can really pay attention to those people. You kind of have to find what works for you. But I have to push back. I don't agree with you when you say, "Oh, I just do the same thing," because you're right, and we have all done this. You start a series or a type of video, you do it for a while until it stops working, and then you sort of reinvent your channel or how you present content or a new series, and it garners a new audience. It re-engages the audience that's already there, and that's how you keep doing this. That's where the longevity in this game. And I think musicians have to do the same thing as well. It's not just content creators or YouTubers. I think you have been in the last 8 years reinventing.
I reinvent the stuff that I do, but my approach to it doesn't really change. I don't think
it's high output for you, though. I am a very low output social media person, and it works for me because it just drives eyeballs to my masterclass. But you are putting out enormous amounts of good stuff all the time, so I think that benefits you.
I just know how to do things kind of one way. It's like I always do 2 regular videos on demand, like this is a video on demand, and then a live stream every week. And I've just done that forever on YouTube. And then on Instagram, I post every day pretty much.
Yeah, that's always been your MO, though. It's like a little inside baseball on Rick Beato. It's like when you decide you want to do something, you put your head down and you're just like a bull. Your first year on YouTube, you made what, like 400 something videos?
No,
your first year?
It was 300 something.
Oh, sorry. So basically, on average, a video a day for the first year of YouTube,
But some of the videos were like, I remember one that Rhett was in. Do you remember the Yanny Laurel thing?
Yeah.
So the video hallucination thing where the older people heard Yanny or whatever. So then I went upstairs and I played it for my kids who were little kids, and then Rhett is in the video, and I don't know who was even filming it, but my kids are all, "What do you hear, Layla? What do you hear?" And she was about 2 years old, so we were doing things like that. And it was like a 4-minute video.
Yeah.
But I do posting every day pretty much, though.
I was a workaholic in my session career, and my favorite video I think I've ever done was the one with Shakira on the cover, where it says stories I shouldn't tell. And it's basically about the fact that I worked 8, 10, 13 hours a day, 7 days a week for decades. That is not an exaggeration. If you watch that video, I did it. I sacrificed so much, and my wife luckily didn't leave. These days, I have to do something different. I still work 7 days a week. What that means is on Saturday and Sunday, I get a couple of hours of work done in the morning, and then I give the rest to family. You are still, Rick, in the workaholic mode, which I admire. But personally, I did that, and I have to do something different now, which is smell the roses a little more. And so I do well, but it goes back to what you were saying. You can't advise anybody because everybody, this is the most amazing thing about this particular thing that we do. Once you find your audience, you can do it any way you want. Mm-hmm. And we know people, Adam Neely would do a video once a month.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Or even longer between.
Yeah, and then now Paul Davids is doing them just whenever he decides he has something he wants to say. Mm-hmm. You can be successful at this with high output and
they can do that because they've built the audience.
After you build it,
and that's the key. Yeah. Is like you have to, with this career or more traditional, I think, music career nowadays, it takes full-time effort, energy, and focus and devotion for no financial reward or payback for a long time. And that's the thing I told most of my musician friends back in 2020. I was like, basically, you need to be prepared. If you want to be successful on YouTube, be prepared to work 40 to 60 hours a week on this thing and not get paid for the first 2 years. And if you can do that and you can stick with it, then you will find success at some point. But most people don't do that. And I think music is probably the same way. I think to develop a sustainable music career, now you have to be prepared to work 1 to 2 jobs and also work full-time as a writer, artist, singer, whatever it is that you do in order to get it going, get it off the ground. And to your point, the way LA was back in the day is no longer reality. The cost of living is so out of control everywhere that people have to work these 2 or 3 jobs, and most people can't afford to take the time necessary to develop the skills and their voice as an artist and a musician. And I think over time we're going to see the negative impact that has on art and music as a whole, because there's just going to be less people doing it.
Yeah, a lot of great artists now benefit from generational wealth.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the parents can support them while they become amazing.
Well, I experienced that as a producer in the early 2000s when there was no major label budgets anymore, that the people you started working with had wealthy parents. I don't know any way to say it other than that.
Did a lot of that in this room.
Right?
A lot of it.
I did so many records like that. Or it was either that or they had investors.
Mm-hmm.
And investors was someone else's wealthy parent that was...
The irony of that is...
That's true. And there'd be like, one major label record, and then there'd be 4 rich kids projects or whatever, and then there'd be another major label record, and then another 5 rich kids projects or whatever, or the rich uncle or whatever. And that's I mean, Rhett was working at the studio when I would be doing stuff like that, and
yeah,
the irony of that is when the music business got really hard, and I would try and do something for Universal, and you had to send your invoice through the Universal Uniport. It was so difficult that at a certain point, if somebody was doing a project on Universal and they called, I would say no. And they go, oh, I know, the Uniport, we'll just pay you directly. Management will pay you. And oh, okay. But the irony of it was, if you were working for somebody's parent, they would pay you for whatever you asked.
That's right.
And they were grateful beyond any comprehension. I mean, because you would make their dreams come true when you played and light up their song, and then they would hand you a check. And with the record companies, might be 90 days.
Wait 90 days. Oh, yes.
Or
always,
180
always.
days. Or a year.
Yes. Oh, my God. I used to wait so long to get paid from the record companies. And Tim, the producers, because you played... Now, I was the producer myself, but you worked for other producers, and they were all taking these kind of projects. They were all doing these, what would you call them, vanity projects?
Vanity projects, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
Now, if we're honest... And we talk about most of the big stars today, or a lot of the big stars, they're frankly from wealthy families.
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying.
They just are. I mean, I don't want to name names.
Yeah.
name your big stars out today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter what the genre is. They're from rich families.
The truth.
There are exceptions to that, and look, there's
not all of them.
Not all of them, and there
90%.
is some great artists that make great music that are from wealthy
absolutely
parents. That's not to say that if someone is like a nepo baby, their music sucks, because that's just not true. But it goes to the point of, like, to develop this skill set, you have to work on it full time.
Yeah,
and most people can't work on it full time because they're working on surviving full time, and so. To your point, it only leaves the door open for people that don't have to worry about that stuff and have the privilege to be able to say, like, I've got my needs covered. I'm just going to work on this stuff full time.
I made a living, even in my 30s. After I finished teaching college, I moved to Atlanta, and I made a living making $500 a week teaching guitar lessons. 50 guitar lessons a week, where I made $10 a lesson. I did that from 1994 to 1999, and that's how much I made, and I had roommates and stuff, and I was playing in a band, and that's all I needed to make my rent and have the artist life.
The sad thing is, too, cost of living has gone up, but the amount you make from a gig in many cases
stayed the same,
gone up.
or gone down,
or gone down, or the gigs have just gone away.
Yeah, the intersection of art and business has always been very hard for the artist, because the business side of it always has the leverage. And when you have 40 people vying for a slot, it's one thing. When you have 400 vying for a slot, it's another. And that's happening in the film industry here, where I go back to what I said about doing twice as much work for half the money. Corporations they are doing this regularly now. So it's just harder to make money as an artist because, you know, you'll take $200 if that's what they've got.
Yeah.
And you should be getting more, and it cannot be a living wage. And that you're absolutely right about that.
So I lived in New York City, in Manhattan, in 93 and 94 in the East Village, and I bartended on a boat, making tips and you know, whatever you made. I mean, not a lot of money. I played in cover bands. I just did menial jobs like that, and I made enough money to live in the East Village. You could never live in the East Village.
Right.
Just do it. And I had time to play all the time. I was writing music, doing stuff, but I could support myself by doing that.
Well, this goes to, like, we all see this in our comment sections a lot. I see it in your videos when you're talking about, like, your Spotify top 10 lists and things like that. People sort of complaining or lamenting about how, well, there's no good music being made today, which is, first of all, just not true. But I also think that this is a byproduct of what we're talking about, because there's just less, you know, there's less people making art and music full time because of all this stuff. That the stuff that rises to the top in this industry is going to be that more curated, formulaic, big business sort of stuff, which still makes the money for the labels and for Spotify. I have seen it happen so many times where a person who's completely unknown has a song or something that blows up overnight, and they get millions of followers and they get hundreds of thousands or millions of streams on Spotify, but it's just that one song, and people go to it because they want to hear that one segment of the one song that keeps showing up in everyone's TikTok. And then because it's just a flash in the pan. You hear it everywhere on all social media apps for 8 weeks, and then it just goes away because people are sick of hearing it. And then, you know, it's just a blip.
No way to make a living,
No.
you know. It's certainly, how do you sustain that?
It's, I don't know.
And that's not an algorithm change, but it is an algorithm change in a way, in that these days, even on YouTube, it seems like you can do some videos and then one will just explode. You don't know exactly why, and then it retreats to kind of a mean, and then another will explode. And I see that with a lot of the YouTubers that I follow. You know, I have to say my videos are pretty I think all our videos are a little more consistent, but I see YouTubers who do limited views and they have this one that explodes. It's more like the video can pop out of anywhere and it can be by anybody, and it's not that you've built an audience and you're consistent anymore. It's kind of the algorithm, you know, chooses these things.
Virality
You would
is
probably
not
disagree, but
So I have the opposite thing. My thing is that I'll have videos, and then I'll make a video on Alan Holdsworth or something. I'll have videos that do really well, and then I have a video that does poorly because it's about something that is a very niche amount of people are interested in.
yeah.
It's usually some weird jazz fusion or modern classical music or whatever. But I make those videos because I want to make them, and I know that they're not going to do well, but I don't care. I just make them anyways, because if I don't make stuff that I'm interested in, then I won't make any videos.
But also, like, not doing well is so relative, because, you know, compared to, you know, a channel of my size or someone else, you know, your video not doing well is a video that's super successful for me.
Well,
and there's plenty of other examples where I'll have a video, I'm like, oh God, this is 10 of 10. It only got, you know, 50,000 views. Oh,
Yeah, you only filled the forum 9 nights in a row.
Exactly. And it's so easy. Like,
Darn.
Because all we see as content creators is we put out a video.
Yeah.
And then YouTube ranks it against the last 10 videos we've done.
You get numbers back.
Yeah.
That's all it is.
Yeah.
You get comments and stuff, but it's just numbers and graphs and analytics and stuff. And it's so easy to forget that that's 50,000 people that watched a video on something. And I'm sitting here pouting about
Yeah, and you just filled
a
stadium, a huge stadium, basically.
Well,
it's like,
I mean, for me, the things that I do that are my passion projects or whatever are really all the videos that I did at the beginning of my channel were these kind of videos. My channel was very niche,
right.
Videos on, you know, well, a lot of music theory videos, ear training, improvisation, stuff like that. A lot of, and then videos on what I guess are obscure. Like I just made a video on Alan Holdsworth last week, and And I made videos on people like that and the jazz fusion people, whatever. And that was kind of my channel. And now when I do that, it's very unusual. And they pretty much perform like they did then. So, but
one of my favorite things, so we're here for NAMM this week. And NAMM is always a great thing. Tim, you and I have talked about this every year. It's a good time to reset and sort of remind yourself that, oh yes, these are not just numbers and analytics. Every view is a person watching the thing, because people come up to us and they'll say hello. And that is one of my favorite things about doing this, is getting to meet people. And there's been so many examples where I will meet someone and they will call out a specific video that I did that they loved. The video you did on this is one of my favorite things. And I remember thinking, oh, I thought that video was a complete failure and a complete flop because it only did this many views and only brought in this many subscribers. But for that person, they really connected with it. And that's why we do this stuff. It's like we want to connect with people and communicate and teach and learn and make stuff that connects with people.
Well, and NAMM is that now. NAMM was one thing 20 years ago when I used to go. But NAMM for us now is meeting the people who appreciate what we do. And it is the greatest feeling. And frankly, you need it because you just said it. There's a person behind every one of those views. And some of them, it's really important that you did that particular thing. And the views don't matter. The number count of views don't matter.
Making videos when I first started my channel, it was really awkward just to talk to the camera by yourself. Most of my videos I made at night when I was still producing. Rhett was coming by the studio. And you're just there talking to it, and you're alone. It's weird. It is weird talking. We've all done this. We've all talked to the camera by ourselves. Yeah. Anytime you see somebody with a YouTube video, unless they have a big team of people, which we don't have big teams of people, then they're just talking to the camera by themselves. So the only time you ever meet anyone is something like NAMM this week or whatever you run in. I ran into a guy at the airport that loves this Boston video that I made. And I didn't want to ask. I was like, well, I've made a few Boston videos. I have 1,700 videos. And I was trying to think, like, I don't even want to ask him what.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
I don't know which Boston video it was. Like,
we had a waiter at the restaurant, Rhett and I, last night, who came up at the end of the dinner. He was really young, too. He goes, oh, my God, you guys, I watch your videos. I love your videos. And just that, it's like, okay, we're on track. We keep going. We're not stopping.
That's my favorite thing.
Yes.
And for you were that for me, Tim, because I watched your channel almost as soon as you started. I remember the first time I got to come to this room, I was starstruck. It's like, oh, my God. Because I was obsessed with YouTube, and you were the first guitar channel that I saw when I was a young 20-something.
I couldn't believe walking into this room, too.
Yeah, it was amazing, because I learned so much. So you taught me so much stuff in your videos that I was immediately able to implement into my playing and made me a better player, a more informed player, whether it was a playing thing or learning about gear or how to dial in an amp. And that is really special because you helped me in some ways, to get philosophical about it. It's like you helped me find my voice as a guitar player and as a musician. And I love that we all get to help do that, I think, for people. It's the coolest part of this job for me. Okay,
the worst part of this job is, to most people, is the criticism that they get. Like, I laugh about it when people make videos calling me out on something. Rick, be out of this, and people use my name in their titles because they'll get views or whatever. And Rhett will send me something, or people will send me, did you see this video that so-and-so made about you? I'm like, yeah, so what? And I laugh about it, but this is the thing that is, it's tough for most YouTubers when people make videos about you or whatever.
It's tough. It happened to me once, and it was super scary. A guy made a takedown video of me, and it started to build really big views over the first couple of days. And I asked you, and I may have asked you too, and you said, whatever you do not respond.
Dude, yeah.
You don't want to start that fire, because what you do, you legitimize this thing that's working against you, and it's it's not nice. They do it just to try and take you down. But the beautiful thing is if you just restrain yourself and you don't engage, it goes away.
I never even think about. I don't even watch.
That was your advice.
When people make these things and they send them to me, I laugh when I see the title. And a lot of people are friends of mine.
Yeah, well, it's like there's two sides to that. There's one side of it where it's someone disagreeing with you or offering some criticism that is constructive or a different perspective. That stuff's fine, like whatever. But then there's the other side of it where people, like to your point, are trying to capitalize on your name or your views or your haters to drum up views and engagement for their own channel. And that kind of stuff, man, yeah, you just have to ignore it. You just have to let it go, because you're only gonna add fuel to that fire, and leaning into it doesn't do any good for anybody except the person that made the video.
I laugh about it. So
and it happens to you more than us. Yeah, that's for sure.
But this is every year when I come here for NAMM or when I come out here to visit. Love coming here with Tim. Tim, Rhett, and I have never made a video together.
Yeah, you're right.
This is really amazing. Rhett and I used to do these videos with me, you, and Dave, or me, you, and whoever was in town. And Tim was gracious enough to invite us both over to do this. I mean, I didn't want to do one with Rhett personally, but basically Tim made me.
We're using my camera, so I figured.
So Tim, I said to Tim, if we invite Rhett, he'll probably film it for us.
Yeah. I will have to bring my camera.
You're the guy with the van.
Yeah, I'm the dude with the van.
Yeah.
He's the drummer. He's got the place. Tim's providing the space.
Let's hire him. He's a van.
So thank you for doing this. If I put this out before NAMM, come see us. Tim and I are doing this. I'm not going to hear the end of this from Rhett. We're doing a thing on social media on Friday.
I definitely don't have anything to add to that conversation. I'm actually busy that day anyway, so I'll.
When I told Rhett, he's like, "Yeah, I'm not free that day." It's like, good.
Good. I wasn't going to ask you anyways.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe to these guys' channels. We'll see you guys.
See you guys.